is my net effect positive or negative in the world? Everything that I've done. I've created tons of jobs. I've donated lots of money. I've done a lot of good things. And at the same time, I believe I've done a lot more harm than good to this day. I believe I've been a big part of something much worse than I've been a part of something good.
All right. Hey, Erik, how are you doing today?
Hello, my man. I'm doing well. I'm scared. I'm a bit nervous. I think we're going into deep waters that I have no idea how to control right now. How are you?
Scared? Well, honestly, I feel the same. I feel the same way. This is a tricky subject for me. The topic of the day is going to be the graveyard. Ooh, spooky. We're going to talk about ethical, moral dilemmas when it comes to working in the gambling industry and being a gambler. Because we come from slightly different backgrounds, where I have been inside of the gambling industry. I've been a participant in the gambling industry as a poker player. And you have been the person arranging the games. You have been creating a affiliation site for gambling. So we have slightly different angles here. And I guess now that the reason you are feeling scared and nervous, Erik, and me the same, is because I haven't given this topic all that much thought, because I suspect that I might be on morally kind of thin ice here. And I guess you feel the same way. So we want to explore today and learn together. And to be honest, we don't have any really good answers here. So our intention today is that we want to learn together. We want to see if we can expand our understanding for the moral dilemmas of being in the gambling industry, and see if we can learn together. I'm guessing now, like I said, why you are nervous. Do you have something to add to that? Did I read you right?
Yeah, I think you mainly read me right. I think the both of us being in the gambling industry have kind of always looked the other way from whatever problem we might be a part of causing. At least that's what I've been doing. Whenever someone has asked me a direct question, how do you feel about this? I kind of let it go over my head somewhere, thinking like, yeah, but everyone has their own responsibility. Even though I'm not sure if that's true. It's like, yeah, but they're grown-ups, they're doing this or that. And not really taking that question in and contemplating it and feeling it. Do I honestly feel this way? Do I honestly believe that everyone who is playing is a grown-up that can take responsible choices? Or do I actually believe that I'm fooling people into this and destroying lives? But I just don't want to look in that place. So yeah, definitely a big part of me is nervous about those things. Another big part of me is nervous about this because I have this craving of being entertaining, and I feel that this is going to be a deep, as you mentioned, graveyard topic. I mean, it's going to be a deep, kind of dark topic, which is hard to entertain through. And one of my common defense mechanisms is always making a joke. And I don't think it's not the perfect setting for that. So there are a lot of reasons for nervousness here that I'm not really sure of how they all tie together.
Well, I say, in the summer, and the water looks really lovely, but it's gonna suck to jump in. I say, yes, let's jump in. And
That's how a Swede describes summer, by the way. Side note. Yeah. It's not that way here in Malta.
Winter in Malta. So I want to go back to what you just said, that everyone is a grown-up and they have their own responsibilities. But I want to go back to that a little bit later on, because I want to sort of start in the beginning. So you and I, we got into poker at the same age. And if you're listening to this and you want to hear about how we got into poker and some stories and fun anecdotes from what it's like being a 16-year-old getting into card games, then go back and check out our podcast number 2, maybe, yeah, where we talk about our history and our poker journey together. That's a fun one. But for now, when you got into poker, 16 years old, did you have any thought of what would be the consequences for the people on the other side, other people's participating?
No, not at all. And even if I would have had that, I don't think I would have been able to take it in and really consider it. At that time, I think I saw myself as a kid kind of playing against adults. So even if I managed, in a sense, to make their lives miserable, I wouldn't have taken any responsibility for it whatsoever because I was just a kid. That's probably how I would have seen it. And I believe that I'm, maybe in a defense mechanism way, have been keeping the self-image of being a kid in these scenarios. That, yeah, but I'm coming from a playful energy rather than taking on the serious, like, yeah, but Erik, that doesn't work when you're 31 years old. You need to wear the big boy pants now.
So it's easier to stay Peter Pan than...
Yeah, I think so. So I think that's...
Than make lifestyle changes.
Yeah, that's where I come from, I believe. How did you feel about this when... let's jump a few years ahead, because I think that you're in a similar position when you're 16. How did you think about this when you were...
I want to stay on that 16 topic for just one moment, because I remember... Yeah, it's one thing when you play online and you don't see the faces of the people that you're affecting. But I remember right from the beginning when I started playing, we played home games just for fun. You played for maybe a couple of 10 euros, 20 euros here and there. Maybe the one who lost the most lost 50 euros, 100 euros over a pretty long time. And I know which guy that was. I know who the biggest loser in our games was. The guy who couldn't control his impulses. He got really angry, tilted, and just started losing all of his money in this game. And I did not feel compassion for him at that point. I just felt proud from winning. And when I think back to that time, that was the exact same way that I perceived sports. Because when I was a kid and I played sports, the only thing that was drilled into me was you win this game. And I never thought about what is the experience of my opponents here. If I do a foul that is not allowed, maybe I hurt someone. I was like, that's part of winning the game. If this is to my advantage, I should take it. What was your experiences at sports or at home games like that?
Actually, the complete opposite.
Really?
Yeah. This brings me back to a question I'd like to ask you after answering it myself. But what was my first bad experience with winning? So when did I feel guilty for winning the first time? And I remember playing, I was in school. I was probably 17 years old. And we didn't play for a lot of money. But there was this guy who kept losing in our group as well. And this time he lost more than he had done previously. And I could see that he is actually not dealing with this well. And he didn't deal with it with anger, but with sadness. And I played a pot with him, and I actually made him win the pot because I cared more about his feelings than me winning the money in that very moment. So, and I can imagine that it comes from the sadness rather than the anger then. So if he would have reacted with anger, I would probably just have been pissed off and told him to grow up. But if he reacts with sadness, and like just a low body posture, cramping down, lowering the tone of his voice, giving me, I just got this feeling that he was just really sad. Then I just didn't want to win his money that way. I didn't care enough about winning to be the reason that he felt sad. So I'd say that's my first bad memory of winning then, or the gambling world in a sense. when did you have your first bad experience with this?
I'll see if something drops in. I'm not sure, to be honest. I'll let you know if something drops in.
I can take another story which I've never told you before, which is somewhat similar to this, and it actually plays out with you and me in Africa when we had just come to the hotel in Accra. We're sitting on that terrace playing China poker, and I just kept winning and winning and winning. It was before you started winning and winning, by the way. For anyone who listens, this ends up with Emil taking shitloads of my money. And I was on a winning streak, and it was doubling and doubling and doubling. And I actually folded a hand when it was like 20 times the money or something. Not fold because you don't fold. But I did mess it up on purpose because I felt, now this is just getting too big. It's not fun anymore. I'll just let him have this one. So I even had that feeling with you, who is then a professional poker player and do this. It was a similar situation to the wait time back in school, but it was 10, 12 years later and from a financially stable guy. So I'd say that the actual scenario played out very, very similarly. But even without the sadness, it was more like, yeah, but we're playing for fun. Fun is the purpose. And if it becomes, I don't know, maybe there was 400 euros in that pot or something like that when we were playing in each hand like that. Now when we were 28 years old, it was way too much for us to just enjoy and focus on the game. So, yeah, that happened as well. So I feel bad winning your money. I'm happy to hear that you took a lot of my money off that. Yeah.
I did not feel bad about winning your money. No.
That's why you stayed a professional poker player, and I got into denial doing marketing.
Yeah. So. I mean, in the beginning of gambling, my mentality, I had such a winner mentality, drilled from sports, drilled by my dad, drilled in school. So when I played, I really wanted to win, really, really badly. And I also loved the game. That's one of the reasons I started when I was 16. I thought it was, on a 1 to 10 scale, I enjoyed the game 9.99. I couldn't think of anything else. So I had thoughts like, not when I began, but later on, maybe when I was around 20, 21, that especially when you play live and you see the faces of the people losing, like, it doesn't feel good to be a part of the experiences of people who seem to suffer a lot from this. But then I couldn't find any solution there, and I wasn't willing to stop because I was enjoying this so much and I was being successful. So I sort of just didn't want to think about it. So my invitation now is to think about it. As a poker player, what is the consequences of being a professional poker player?
So starting then with this home game, long before you were a professional poker player, what role did you play in the anger of this 16-year-old boy, and how did you think that he felt after these games?
I can imagine he felt very, very bad, like intense psychological pain that comes from, I experienced the intense psychological pain of losing in poker. And then when you don't have perspectives that works to your advantage, I can imagine that pain gets multiplied. So I can imagine he had very intense pain from those experiences. that led into other addiction behaviors and many other kinds of suffering.
Do you think he would have played if it wasn't for the excitement of you and your close friends that were the winning guys? I'm guessing that you guys arranged the games and he was more invited than the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
I think he. I'm not sure if he would have played then, but I guess that he would have gotten into gambling somehow eventually. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that guy's doing today. I'm not friends with him, but I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you think, because he then obviously had a lot of bad experiences with gambling earlier on. Do you think that it's better to do that with play money than having? Because if he didn't have that, maybe he would have started gambling when he was 20, 25 or something like that, and then play for real money, maybe at the casino.
I think that we can only guess about that, so it doesn't make that much sense to...
For the one listening, there will be a lot of guesses today.
Yeah, there will be a lot of guesses. I'd like to stay on these home games, because what's interesting with them is that, compared to online gambling, is that here you are somewhat of a host. Yeah. Even if it's not at your place, if it wasn't for you, there is less likely there would have been a game. Yeah. If you're playing Poker Stars today with millions of players, your existence as a player or not will not have an effect on whether or not other people are playing. Yeah. But at these home games, by just participating, you're enabling the game. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting aspect in this of the responsibility of the game happening. Yeah. So yeah.
The smaller the player pool, the more you become a host of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there is more responsibility of the 16-year-old Emil for whoever playing with him than it is of 31-year-old and 30-year-old Emil.
Yeah. So, because I'm thinking if I play on Poker Stars today, you have millions of people online. Then I'm thinking, all right, if I play a tournament on Poker Stars where maybe 10,000 people participate, whether I participate or not, it's not going to change the situation whatsoever for someone that might be playing that have a gambling addiction. And then I'm thinking, what if everyone thought like this? Do you think does that make sense to think like that? Because it's right in one way. If every single professional choose to not play, there wouldn't be a game running. But then it's absurd to think that will happen at the same time. So is that a valuable way of thinking?
If we take that with a completely different analogy, do you recycle?
Yeah.
So do you think that you recycling makes any difference whatsoever for the environment of the world?
Yeah.
So it's probably teeny tiny bit. And if everyone recycled, it would make a huge impact. And I'd say it's the same scenario here with the poker. So you have a teeny tiny part in this. It wouldn't really change for the world or for the other players if you didn't do it. Mm. But if everyone did it, it would make a huge impact. So I'd say you have equally part in both of them if you wouldn't have recycled, for example, and wouldn't play. Does that make sense?
I guess it works to some extent when it comes to poker. I'm thinking if me not participating in a 10,000 people tournament would cause a bad player to not participate ever.
Probably not ever. But at the same time, with the recycling analogy, nothing would really change if you didn't recycle either on a larger scale.
I'm thinking the effect I have in a tournament is that, and I'm guessing now, is that the players in the player pool that that this would have a negative effect to, given that I'm a winning player, would be the other professionals in the game, because their environment would be more challenging.
Yeah. I'd like to just take a little sidestep here. Now we're into something that's super, super niche and super, super specific.
Yeah.
That probably 99% of the people listening to this
You're right. Yeah.
wouldn't understand. I've been fine with that. And we're exploring us more than the guests, more than anything else, I would say. It's just something to be aware of.
So let's summarize this in one sentence and then move on. And I think we're saying here that being the less players in a gambling situation, the more you are affecting that the game will actually happen. And when you are affecting that the game will happen, that makes you into a host instead of a player. And then it's when you're actually drawing people into gambling that wouldn't otherwise be gambling.
Yeah, you're kind of becoming the company.
Exactly. Because you're facilitating a game, you're not participating in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in a sense, you are the company because no one is charging anyone. So instead, you kind of do it as a voluntary organization.
Yeah, in that home game when you're 16 years old, you become the casino.
Yeah, it's basically like a football team. It wouldn't exist if there wasn't enough players.
Yeah.
So if you become a player, you become part of the club in a sense if it's a very small.
Yeah. So
I'd like to revisit the question about the first kind of negative experience because you're touching upon it when you've seen people losing in a live game.
Yeah.
But you chose to look the other way. Can you recall a specific situation where you didn't manage to?
Well, I think my first experiences with it was because I enjoyed the game so much when I started. And I did, honestly, I did not play, a little bit I did, but mostly I played because I loved the game, not to make money. And I liked it so much that I wasn't considering quitting anyway. But what I did think about was that not everyone else that plays is going to have a gambling addiction. And the ones who play that are losing are playing because they want a positive experience. So when I began, if someone was trash talking me live or in the chat, I could be aggressive back or write something mean back. It's easier behind a keyboard, right? But then I realized if I'm ruining their experience, then that's more or less bad for me because they're sort of paying to have a good experience. So then I'm taking away sort of what they're paying for by being rude. So I guess the first experiences I have that I'm creating a bad situation is when I'm not behaving myself.
That's an interesting approach to this. It makes sense. Like you're winning and you're being a douchebag on top of it.
Yeah. I'm ruining the experience that they're paying for.
Yeah. I like what you're saying now with that you are paying for. To me, this has been my most common excuse, and I believe this is the most common excuse in the entire gaming industry.
Yeah.
Like, whoever is playing for entertainment, and a lot of the time that's true. But personally, I think that I'm making... if there is 10 people, I want to think that 10 of them does not have a problem. And maybe actually 5 of them have a problem one way or another, and 5 of them are actually just entertaining. Because sure, there might only be one that is actually addicted, but 5 of them is going to have a shitty evening talking to the missus or whatever because they lost money. So a lot of them will also have a negative experience even though they're not in deep shit. How many do you think percentage-wise actually have a feeling where the entertainment value is worth the money lost? I mean, that's obviously just a rough guess, but where would you feel?
That's so tricky to answer because I personally don't like gambling. And that's a weird thing to say when I've been gambling for 10 plus years as a professional. But playing blackjack or a game where I don't have an edge, I really don't enjoy that. I've never done it. So to me, gambling is not enjoyable. So I'm not sure how... It's like saying, how many people that are smoking do you think enjoy it? I think that's kind of tricky to answer.
It's very tricky to answer.
I mean, they do enjoy the rush of it. I would say that out of the players that are losing, which means that it has a negative consequence. Maybe you can afford losing, so then it doesn't have a negative consequence. But I think if you really pull down the layers of the onion, I would say it's kind of close to zero. That they actually get more joy out of it than pain.
Yeah, I think.
And I'm guessing now.
There are definitely situations. So I can touch upon two very different situations when gambling is fun or whatnot. First one, just being myself. The first time I felt that, wow, I cannot handle this. And I was playing poker. This is probably back in 2008, probably earlier. Yeah, I was 18 years old maybe. And I'm playing at a poker site that has this little blackjack icon. So you can any second go from the poker to the blackjack. And I've been losing on the poker table, or maybe I'm just bored, I don't remember. And I click up the blackjack and I'm starting just betting a little bit for fun. And then I'm losing a little bit, so I put myself in this martingale situation where you double the bet each time. So first time you bet 1, if you lose you bet 2, if you lose you bet 4, and you win with 4, then you actually won more than you lost. And it's a shitty system, don't do it, but it's very easy to trick the mind with it. And I'm ending up with the last bet being all the money I had left. And I think that at the time that was $1,500 was my last bet. And if I would have lost that, I would have lost all my financials as, yes, I gotta be 18 when this happens, or maybe even 17. And I won that bet. I actually got a blackjack, so I even got 1.5 times the money, ending up with more money than I had when I started. But I remember I sat there shaking after this. Like, what the fuck did I do? And I went probably from didn't even start betting until betting all the money I had in less than 5 minutes. It went so quickly without me even thinking about the process. And that's my first experience with like, whoa, this is dangerous. And I blocked myself from the casino after that. I've barely played casino games at all after that. But I remember how quickly I got sucked into the screen, and still being a professional gambler in a sense, at least for what you can say of the age of 17, 18. And yeah, how that really could have changed my entire life trajectory. I could be, if I would have lost that hand, I could have been in a completely different place right now. I probably would. So I think it's interesting then to see myself then as a person who have enjoyed gambling in a lot of ways. I actually do enjoy playing roulette and these kind of games. Sometimes I can see the thrill in that. But how easily it could have maybe even destroyed my life. I wouldn't say it would have been destroyed from that hand only, but it could have happened that things would have changed dramatically.
So with the psyche that you had at that point, because that's a really interesting example, with the psyche you had at that point, because I think the idea that everybody has a free will and free choice, that's kind of overrated. Because everybody comes from different biologies, different psychology, different background, different traumas, a lot of things. And it's sort of mostly an autopilot going forward. And this sounded like a case, and I've experienced this as well when I'm feeling really, really bad when I'm playing, that a really bad version of the autopilot takes over and then just starts making really shitty decisions. And it feels like an autopilot, what you're describing there. So when having experienced something like that, I think the idea that grown-up are responsible for their own choices, that almost becomes silly to think like that. when that defect is built into the personalities that we are.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that you're responsible at that point? And when do you stop getting responsible?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you see responsible. Would I have been responsible to a court? Yeah, definitely. If I wouldn't have been responsible, am I ever responsible? It's another aspect of that, but I definitely see your point. It's very... I mean, the system is built to trick you. The system is built to create these habits. So you could argue that they would be illegal because they're so good at tricking people. And another thing that just brings to mind, which is actually very similar, is the story I told the other podcast we did about how I bought the great.com domain name in an auction, and how I just instantly bid on those numbers, and that was hundreds of thousands of dollars without me thinking. And I might have done the same thing and ended up at 1.5 million or 2 million or shitloads of money without contemplating it, because the state of the rush. So could you argue, I would say that the experience is very, very similar for me personally and emotionally when I'm in that state. Would I then be responsible for the bid I did in an auction? I don't know. It becomes very similar.
At this point, by the way, if you're listening, some of you might be confused. Some of you might be furious, thinking that we are idiots, seeing stuff that is so clear to you that isn't clear to us. And again, we are definitely not claiming to have any answers or any insight here. We're here to learn together and to actually talk about this. And I haven't talked about this open before. So if you're thinking we're idiots, we would love to know that. So please write a comment, and so we can expand our understanding. So we want you listening to be a part of this.
Yeah. So I had two examples of gambling, and the only scenario I've seen, I wouldn't say only, one of the scenarios I've seen where I could really enjoy gambling as a thing, and actually even slot games, which I never play, the spinning machines, is what is commonly referred to here in Malta in the gaming industry as the Friday spin, which usually is a couple of guys after work putting in 50 euros each or something, and they set the computer on auto spin, so it just plays the same game over and over again. They sit back, have a beer, and watches it like it's a football game. And then you do it together, so it's actually a lot of fun doing it that way. And there's probably very, very limited risk of creating a gambling issue or anything, because you're doing it as a group. You're winning as a group, you're losing as a group. So that part of it I can really enjoy, and I can see very limited downsides in it, as long as you're staying in the group. Problem is that it's very unlikely that you do that, so it's still a gateway into the industry. But to me that's a pure joy kind of experience then, when we've been doing this.
So at what point do you think it tips over from being entertainment to being sort of danger zone towards being addiction?
A key word that comes to me is presence. So if I'm present in the moment, I'm enjoying it, I'm here and now, then it's joy. When it becomes about avoiding the now, so when you're not even, the autopilot is there, you're not even present yourself, there's something above your head doing this, or when you're playing to distract yourself from stress or from problems in your love life or whatever it might be, then it becomes a completely different scenario, and it's a big problem. So if you're starting playing with the energy of I want to enjoy this, then I think I wouldn't say that it's not dangerous, but a lot less dangerous. But if you're coming from an energy, oh fuck, I need to distract myself, then you're in a tough spot. Yeah, what do you think?
Cool. Yeah, I think all kind of, if you to distract yourself from negative emotions and experiences, that's fine sometimes for me. But if it's a chronic thing, that becomes very destructive. I spoke to your brother about this kind of recently, and I liked his definition of when this becomes into the danger zone, and that is when you're playing to win money instead of playing to have a good experience.
Yeah, that's true. I feel that we're a bit on the shallow part of this topic right now. I think that we can easily talk from the mind here, not really dealing with guilt or our own feelings in this. How do you feel about see if we can dig deeper into this topic? Like what causes do we
Sure.
think we're what are the possible negative effects we've actually had?
Cool.
So if you're looking for a worst case scenario in the negative effects that you might have had, what do you think those would be? Is that a question that you feel comfortable going to?
Yeah, sure. I especially when I have been playing heads up one-on-one, and I am playing against someone that is tilted, which means that they're on this autopilot. They're psychology annoyed and they're making really bad decisions. I know that I have been writing things in the chat to try to what is the word? I try to make this person
engaged.
even more angry,
Okay.
so he would lose more money. And then, of course, I am contributing to that bad behavior. So in games, I certainly have not been an angel all the time. But the way I'm thinking about it lately is I think one of the worst things that I've been doing is to spend a lot of time in a game that is a zero-sum game. And would you like to explore this here?
Let's get back to that one. I think it's an interesting thing,
Yeah.
but I'd like to explore the heads-up situation, and I'd like to explore myself on that question first. So let's take this heads-up situation where, if we go back to the being a part of creating the game situation, this person would have played otherwise, but now he's playing against a professional. Maybe he wouldn't have played against a professional otherwise. So in a sense, he's in a worse spot than he would be if you wouldn't have been there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? And you are aware of that this player is on autopilot. Would you say that you can see that easily?
You see when someone is playing bad, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, and you've been kind of wanting them to stay there, writing or playing in a certain way or whatnot, kind of tricking them to stay on autopilot. Just thinking about a scenario like that, what feelings does it bring up?
When I think of the isolated incident of me sitting with him at a table, I feel guilty about it because I'm tricking him to lose his money to me. That's what poker is about. The whole game is about deception and tricking people.
Yeah.
And so that is giving me guilt, and to see someone going through suffering is painful, even for me that is winning. So, and in order to protect myself from that, I try to zoom out and see it from a bigger perspective, which is if we talk about heads up, which means you play one-on-one. If you go into a client like Party Poker, you have a list of 100 regulars, which is good players, professionals, sharks, that are sitting and waiting for a player. And I'm getting someone to play against because they have clicked on my table by randomness and decided to play with me. And the way I'm thinking about it, and I'm not sure if this is right, is that if they hadn't clicked on my table, they would have clicked on any other of the 100 other people sitting and would have had the same kind of behavior towards that player. So I see, by the fact that I'm sitting there, I see the person that is mostly losing is the person he would otherwise play against. And this is my way of rationalizing this, and I'm not sure if that is correct, or if that's a way for me to feel better about the situation.
Yeah, it goes back to this we were talking about before. Do you have any responsibility in a 10,000 player situation or not? And if you do, who has the responsibility?
Yeah.
So let's say all the other professionals didn't exist. You were the only one sitting there waiting, just for in a hypothetical situation. Would you still have done it?
Today I would not. When I was 18, for sure.
A year ago?
Not a year ago. 4 years ago, probably.
So what changed? When did you start rationalizing this or changing empathetically about this?
Well, the reason I have thought like this but haven't chosen to stop playing is because I think the argument that you just made is absurd / unrealistic. So you can say, well, if there was only one player in the game, which is the same thing as saying, if everybody thought like you, then this situation wouldn't exist. But it's not going to happen that this situation doesn't exist. Is that making sense? Could you
yes,
teach back
yes
what I said?
And no.
Yeah.
So the questions I asked was what changed for you? Because apparently you would have played 4 years ago, but you wouldn't have played today. So
Cool.
even in this hypothetical situation, something changed within you.
Cool.
Your
A lot of things have changed within me. And for me personally, that is because I have been an active student of different spiritual concepts, where I now prioritize qualities like generosity, empathy, caring for others, and I have developed those muscles in my brain. So I'm capable of perceiving a situation from more perspective than just my own.
okay.
And I also I guess I perceive myself as being more connected to other people. So and that perception is leading me to wanting to make decisions that are as beneficial for the whole as possible compared to as beneficial for me. And I'm not all the way there, of course. I prioritize myself over other people, but I'm more skewed towards wanting to do what's best for the most number of people. And with that perception comes different actions and values in these kind of situations. That has changed.
Would you like to explore me on this topic?
Sure. Would you like me to use the poker example, or would you like me to use the example of the business that you built?
Yeah, let's take the business.
Cool.
Makes the most sense to me.
For anyone listening, Erik's background is he has founded a company called Catena Media that is doing online marketing towards casino. So in the example that we spoke about before, about being the player or being the host, you have definitely taken the host role here. So would you like to start from the beginning, how you thought about it at first, when you got into it? What was your ethical way of viewing this industry when you got into it?
I think we touched upon it before, that for a very long time I didn't even contemplate the ethical aspects. I didn't even think about it. I ignored it with arguments like, yeah, they're grown-ups, that's their own responsibility. I wasn't taking any responsibility whatsoever for what I was doing. And I'd say that lasted for a long time. And to a large extent, that's still true. That's still an argument I'm going to, at least when I'm having the conversation on a shallow level, either with someone else or just with my head. Like, yeah, I'm not going, I'm looking the other way to a large extent. When I'm just exploring it myself and see what kind of part I am in this, a question pops up in my head. And it's, do I believe that I'm responsible for someone else's suicide? And my answer is yes. I believe that I've played a part in someone else's suicide. And just, I haven't really contemplated this at all before, but I'm feeling that now. And I'm feeling that because I've been a part of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people playing casino. And sure, most of them would have played either way. Similar to the poker analogy we just did, that most of them would have played either way. But since I've been involved with so many people during so long time, a lot of them wouldn't have played. If I wouldn't have been a part of sending them that email or adding this promotion or talking about this or that in that forum, they probably wouldn't have done it. Enough people out of all of the people who've been playing. Some of them have lost a lot of money. And some of them might have committed suicide. That might not have happened to me if it wasn't for me. I don't know. This is hypothetical. But just thinking about that, feeling that, makes it hard to look the other way. It's true. Well, it could be true. And even if it's not true, it at least means that I put people's life at risk for my own benefit. That's true, regardless if someone else died or not. I put someone else's lives at risk for my own benefit. And yeah, for a very long time, I rationalized this by, well, I didn't rationalize this. I looked the other way. I took zero responsibility. And another question that you and I talked about before the call was, is my net effect positive or negative in the world? Everything that I've done. I've created tons of jobs. I've donated lots of money. I've done a lot of good things, and at the same time, I believe I've done a lot more harm than good to this day. I believe I've been a big part of something much worse than I've been a part of something good. And still, my main way of coping with this is pretending that it's not true. But talking about it like this, exploring it, I feel in my heart that it's true. I've done a lot more bad things than good things.
So when was the first time you sort of realized this thought? Maybe I made someone else take their life.
2 minutes ago. I don't think I haven't put it in those kind of words before, not even to myself. I probably touched upon the idea somewhere far out in my consciousness, like, yeah, that might have happened. But I've never said it out loud. I've never really gone there with my thoughts either. And definitely never said that it's very likely that it's true.
Probably it's very likely. Same thing for me, to be honest. I could have indirectly or directly caused that. Yeah,
at least it's fair to say that it's true both for you and me, that we have put other people's lives at risk for our own benefit. We have no idea if anyone actually died or did anything that drastical. But the both of us have done that. And once again, we just try talking on this topic. We have no specific direction or any place we're going with this, and we don't have the right answers. But we're aware of this. I'm aware of this.
And what would you like to say? Let's say the parents of this person was listening now. What would you like to say to them?
it's completely quiet. If I were to face with the parents of someone who's taken their lives due to something I did or where I played a part in it, I would be speechless. I would have no idea what to say.
If you could go back, would you create your company again?
I'm not sure. I think I would. But I'm not sure. I had this discussion on LinkedIn yesterday about the morals of what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. And yeah, for those of you who listen, I want to do the most good possible. And I believe that one way of doing that is donating as much money as possible. To do that,
can I pause and keep going? Because I thought we were somewhere deep there, and this seems like we're getting out of the wormhole a bit. So I want to explore that.
I think that I'll get back to it. I think I'll get back to the wormhole from there.
Cool.
So I want to do the most good possible, and that's one way of me for then rationalizing going into gambling or staying in gambling, to be able to donate this money that I made. And yesterday, I got the question like, can you do this in any other industry? And going back then to your question, like, would I have done it differently if I could have started over? If I could have those 12 years back, I wished I would have taken them into another industry. And maybe I would have been able to take it from there. If I'm starting over today, I'm 12 years worth of knowledge into this. That's going to be a big percentage of my working life. And if I'm going in another direction, I'm gonna need to relearn it. And I believe that the difference I can make, even if this is the industry, is far bigger than if I try to do something else. Even knowing that I'm causing this harm, I would do it again today. If I could go back in time 12 years, knowing what I know, I would have spent those 12 years learning another industry.
Cool. So, are you willing to, because now you're saying you're starting the company great, that is going to be in the gambling industry, and that company is likely going to have the effect that someone is killing themselves.
Yes.
Are you willing to have that effect?
I have screaming voices in my head right now saying both yes and no. So I don't have a clear answer. I'm not sure if I would be able to fully grasp the consequences. And at the same time, I feel that I will never be able to fully grasp the consequences.
Spirit, kan du snälla inte vara där? Det är jätteirriterande.
So my rational brain says that it makes all the sense in the world to do it. My emotional heart, or brain for that matter, is more torn. But I believe that the rational part of me is winning in this. So I do sincerely believe that staying in what I know, staying in gambling, will make it. I believe that we would make at least 3 times as much money as if we tried something else where I have no experience. And I think 3 times is a low number. And the rationale I did on LinkedIn was, let's say that we would make 10 million euros in profit in another industry, giving that away. In the math of GiveWell, a child's life is roughly 2,500 euros.
And what is GiveWell?
So GiveWell is this organization giving information about different charity causes and making it more tangible what it is that they're doing. And according to them, the cheapest way of saving a life is with mosquito nets in malaria areas. And the lives that you save are usually children below the age of 5 years old. And it would cost roughly €2,500 to save a life. So let's say we would make 10 million euros in another industry. And we would make 30 million euros in the gambling industry, then 3 times as much. The difference is 20 million euros, or the equivalent of 8,000 children's lives. This brings again the moral dilemma. Is it worth being part of destroying someone else's life if you can save 8,000 children's lives? Does the math make sense? I don't know. It's philosophical. To be honest, I think I would have a harder time sleeping at night knowing that I didn't do whatever I could for those 8,000 children than knowing that I harmed someone else. So I think both of them, I will feel my body with guilt and grief. I do believe that the 8,000 children would make me feel more. I think it's the morally correct choice to to do whatever I can for the 8,000 children.
So let's use that example. Let's say you make 30 million euros from gambling. That means that I'm not sure how much Great would get from redirecting a player. But let's say, I'm just guessing, let's say if Great were to make 30 million, someone would have to lose at least 100 million. I don't know what the math is.
Yeah.
But let's pretend that. So then some people you don't know would have to pay 100 million so that you can take the credit, or that sort of Great can take the credit for saving those 8,000 lives. Do you think that's fair?
To start with, I don't like the perspective of taking credit into this. It's a very, very small part of me that cares about the credit rather than the lives of these children. So I would step away from the phrase of taking credit. But if we revisit the math logic, that actually makes a lot of sense and is very interesting to contemplate. So people would have to lose 100 million euros to save 8,000 lives. So far, that makes sense. That means that every life is not actually 2,500 euros. It's what does that tie up to? This is why we should have someone with a calculator next to us. Let's say that's up to 12,500 euros then, should it be? If I'm not miscalculating. Yeah, 12,500 euros. So the life is actually not 2,500 euros this way, it's 12,500 euros. And it's 12,500 euros coming from strangers, people we don't know. The next question then is, how many people would this be? Is it 8,000 people losing this, or is it 80,000 people being a part? Does it even matter? I don't know. But it's interesting, Matt, that's hard to do like this and makes me, for the first time, actually question if gambling is the right choice or not. Which scares me, because I feel that I have this figured out, and now I realize I might not. Yeah, I don't have the answer. But I'm questioning something I haven't questioned before.
Would you like some time to think?
I don't think I will get to any valuable conclusions from here. So I don't think time to think would really make a difference, unless it's a couple of hours of conversations and we don't have that time.
I mean, I hate to go out of the devil's advocate energy that I'm playing so skillfully right now, putting you into tough spots. But with grade, I think one thing that makes a big difference here is that those 100 millions, they are kind of similar to what I was describing, that if I wasn't one of those, when I was playing poker, if I wasn't one of those 100 sharks waiting in the lobby, the losing player would lose to another shark.
Yeah.
So out of those 100 million that people would have to lose in order to finance saving these 8,000 lives with the math that we are making up right now, as an example, how much of those 100 million do you think would be lost anyway to a casino owner that would not use that money to save lives, but instead would use it for, I'm guessing now, luxury?
That's a very valid point, and it changes the math dramatically. Yeah. Let's say a minimum of 90% would have been lost either way, because we're not going to do aggressive TV campaigns. We're not going to be the ones doing all these campaigns or whatnot. So probably 90% would have been lost either way, which means that there's only 10 million being lost rather than 100 million that we have played a role in, and we're just redirecting all the other revenues. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very valid point. And taking that even further, we're also taking money away from marketing campaigns and stuff elsewhere, because those money would be donated. So if those 30 million would have been made in profits in a company that does aggressive marketing campaigns, a lot of it would, on top of this, generate more players to go into gambling and be spent that way, when we would be giving it away instead.
This went deeper than I thought. Now, you know, when we probably both heard this question the first time when we were 13, like, if a robber came into a bank and took you and 5 other people as hostage, and he said, either you kill one person or I kill everyone here. And the question is, would you kill that person? How do you think about a question like that?
Yeah, it's so hard, especially being in this. I don't have the correct answer to it. I rationally, once again, I think it makes sense to kill one person to save the other lives, if you for a fact know that this is true. That's the other fact. The robber, you don't know if he's actually going to kill the other ones or if he's just threatening you. But let's say we know 100% that it is true. Then rationally, I would have killed the other person. Someone who killed the robber. I just needed to kill one person. See what I did there? But yeah, it's so tricky. Once again, rationally, it makes perfect sense. On the other hand, do I have the right to play God? I don't know. Let's hope I never get into that position. And I mean, it's pretty much what we're doing here. We just don't know the math. In that example, we know it's 1 to 5. And if that's not morally correct, let's say it's not correct with 1 to 5. Is there a number where it is correct? 1 to 500? 1 to 5 million? 1 to 5 billion? Is it correct to kill one person to save the population of the earth? I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a scale. I believe that not everyone, but most people would say it's correct to sacrifice one life to save the population of the earth. So then it's just a matter of numbers. It's tricky when it gets so tangible that you have to do it, you have to be there. It's like, what would you do? I think a lot of people would just put the gun to their own head then and kill one person, and that would be themselves. Because that's the only life you're actually in charge of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, and I like analogies like that because it becomes so graphic somehow.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's a challenge with charity. To those 8,000 lives, that's just a number, but it's actually real people that otherwise would die in a way or disfigure them or traumatize them with these horrible diseases. That is for real. It's real people dying from really horrible diseases. And if you choose not to do this, then you're choosing to let those people die. So there's no really good decision.
No, it's always a choice.
Yeah. So, since we're running short on time here, I want to wrap this up with, what kind of responsibility do you see that you have with Great when it comes to gambling addiction, and what are you going to do about it?
I haven't been contemplating that much what kind of responsibility I've had before this call, to be honest. But I have been contemplating a lot of ways that I would like Great to play an important role in preventing gambling addiction. I really like, part of what we're doing would be to help whoever is addicted. I spoke to a friend yesterday, 2 days ago, who's been going through gambling addiction and almost killed himself. And he told me about this program that he had been a part of with psychiatrists and people that helped him, that had been so important for him. And it had been free, and now the program doesn't exist anymore because they didn't receive funding. So I'd like to make sure that those kind of programs exist and that they can be free and really help people. So there are effective methods. The problem is that they're expensive and people don't want to pay for them. So in his words, he said that this could still be free if you went through social services and asked them to help. If you asked them, they could help you. But he said that for him, that would never have been a choice. He would rather kill himself than ask for help from social services, because that's simply his pride and how he was raised. So even though if it exists now, if he has that reasoning, then a lot of other people have that reasoning. So they might rather kill themselves than ask for help. So I want to be able to pick these people up before, be able to have a way of giving help without them really asking for it, or at least not having to do it so openly. So if you have to go through social services, you can't do this anonymously. But if you were able to keep talking to psychiatrists just online in a web forum using your nickname, then you would.
Yeah.
So I want to create ways of lowering that barrier and be able to help in these ways. And there are a lot of other similar things, but basically the logic is that if we're going to do really good at marketing and really good at making people play, we also want to be really, really good at doing the most possible we can to help these people and make sure that we pick up whoever is actually playing from a problem perspective and making that transition very, very easily. And the difference for us and other companies in the gambling industry is that we do not have the intention of making money. We don't have the intention. That's not our end goal. We're not going to benefit shareholders. We want to do the most possible good. So a big part of that will be that we will actually be able to be responsible for the harm that we do, taking a responsibility that I have not taken in the past, and doing that in various ways.
Cool. And to clarify, if you are tuning into this for maybe the first couple of times, is that Great will be an identical company as Catena Media, doing online marketing towards casino, but give away 100% of its profits to charity.
Yes.
Cool. I feel like I have a lot to think about after this call.
Yeah.
I would love to do a follow-up on this in maybe 6 months, 1 year, and see if we have taken our thinking in this further.
Yes.
Cool. I want to end it on with this kind of energy. But before, do you have something to say to wrap up this podcast?
Yeah, so I'd like to revisit that we don't know the correct answers here. I've gotten a lot of questions about what the purpose of this podcast is, and we don't have a purpose. We are here to explore this topic and invite anyone who wants to be a part of this journey, be a part of this journey, listening to us contemplating these things as well as transparent salaries and these things. So I went in this conversation being nervous because I was afraid it wouldn't be entertaining, and I don't want to be entertaining. That's not the energy I want to come from. I want to be able to explore these topics the way we've done now, and I'm very happy with what we did. Especially the last part of it, I think, made very good sense. And just questioning these things, and I really want to question these things. I want to be able to feel that I've at least given the ethical aspects a lot of thought and not just looked the other way and kept running. So yeah, I'll end it on there. Do you want to add anything?
I like what you just said, to stop looking away and to think a lot about this. Maybe we don't come up with an answer, but at least we're not looking away.
Yeah, I think that's the key, not ignoring it.
Cool. All right.
And take responsibility for our choices in that. Yeah.
I enjoyed exploring this with you.
Me too.
I felt like I learned stuff, for sure. All right, cool. I'm gonna let you run away. Have a good day, Erik.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.